Do you want a model to commemorate one of the most colossal failures in Indy 500 history? I thought you did. Just like the real car, this car was late. It was slow getting to the racetrack, and it came out today. What is today, you may ask? Well, today is the Monday after Sunday of Bump Day at the Indy 500, and of course, Fernando Alonso missed the Indianapolis 500. Unfortunately, to try as I might, they wouldn't give me a 34th place discount on this car, so I had to buy it at full price. Regardless, we are going to take a look at this car and reminisce a little bit about the comedy of errors that was McLaren at this year's Indianapolis 500 on Indy 500 month. Like all the other Indy cars, this is a 1/18 scale produced by Greenlight Collectibles. You can actually also get a 1/64th scale version, kind of the Hot Wheels scale version, as my friend Steve calls them. These cars were actually out long enough for Fernando to actually be on track when you could buy these. And of course, back in the day, I don't have a 1/18 scale of this with me, but I did kind of accidentally bring one of the 2017 versions along. So this was available at one point. This was also available in 1/18 scale and 1/18 scale with a figure. I would imagine that this car is not going to get a figure release because of the fact of its unfortunate demise before it even got a chance to race in the Indianapolis 500. This livery is based on the car that tested at Texas, which is ironically enough the car that ended up eventually getting bumped. Of course, the chassis that Fernando Alonso wrecked and the one that McLaren wanted to go with was one that was built by McLaren in England. This car, or at least the car that this is based on, was a Carlin chassis built by McLaren, which they intended on not using. They ended up using it, but it took them 2 days to repaint it because it wasn't painted the right color. Is this car painted the right color? I think so, but some people have complained about it. Who knows? One of the things that you will immediately see is that the side pod of the car is blank. And the reason for that is because, of course, the primary sponsor was Views and RJ Reynolds, Reed Big Tobacco, Vapor Product, and I don't think there have been a few exceptions to this rule. I think some of the Senna F1 McLaren or Williams have had full tobacco branding, but generally when a tobacco company is sponsoring a model of any kind, usually the company will play it safe and not run those logos, regardless of whether the product is actually cigarette related or not. So this was that way. Obviously, there are a few other sponsors like Go Smile, which would have been on the engine cover, but I don't believe it ran that way at Texas, so they didn't produce it on the model. Also, the Shadow Esports team, which McLaren runs, is supposed to have some logos on the wheel flicks here. That is not there. Let's try to go in for a close-up view here. This car does have the proper NTT IndyCar Series logos, one of two Diecast produced this year that actually has that. The other one is Marco Andretti, which I've got over there and might show you in a later video. Richard Mille, which is one of the sponsors from his original effort in 2017. BR Petrobras, which is one of the F1 sponsors, as well as Husky Chocolate. Of course, Chevrolet, the engine supplier. Dell Technologies, Mind Maze. And unfortunately, you'll see a defect right there. One of these things about these green lights is they're not very well quality controlled. So even when you're buying them in the stores, you have to look for every little thing that could be wrong with them, and I missed that part. Kimoa, of course, the meme sponsor, along with Dell Technologies. Of course, they're on the top of the side pod as well, AutoNation Chevrolet. And you can see, again, the proper NTT logos, the proper Indy 500 version Firestone tires on each side, as well as ScanSource down the nose of the car. Yep, there's not much to talk about this. I would be interested to see what happens with this car, whether or not people buy it or whether it sits around for a while. Some people think that this is going to be a really hot collector's item, especially in a couple of years after some of the ugly memories of this car missing the race. I think some people are going to pass on this car and then eventually realize that they want this car, and the car is not going to be available to them. Also, of course, Greenlight has not had a lot of great luck producing cars that have not made the show. They actually also made a Max Chilton in the 1/64 scale, which I actually have, but don't have with me to show off for the video. And of course, last year they made Pippa Mann, who got bumped from the show, in both scales, as well as James Hinchcliffe. So yeah, it's kind of funny to see them make models of cars that don't even make the Indy 500. And this is specifically an Indy 500 car because of the Indy 500 tires and the fact that Fernando is probably not going to run any more IndyCar races this year. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more IndyCar, Indy 500 month content. And yeah, I think we're going to still be talking. There's a couple more things to housekeep about Fernando Alonso. So stay tuned for a little more Alonso content before the end of the month. We'll see you in the next video.